The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Saturday, 2nd of May.
The FujiCast.
Hello, welcome to the FujiCast. It is a weekend, but the weekends, as we said before, feel like a Monday, feel like a Tuesday, feel like a Wednesday, feel like a Thursday. What day is it, Kev?
Not today. It's my little Albees' birthday.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday to you. In fact, Albie, lean across here. Albie, there we go. Oh, no, you shouldn't drink that. Let your dad have it. Well, happy birthday, Albie. He's so he is now 9.
He's 9. Although a couple of weeks ago I was talking to somebody and on a Zoom cast, and Gemma was with me, and I said, I can't believe Albie's going to be 7 in a couple of weeks. And Gemma looked at me as if I'd just poked her in the eye. She said, 7? I went, yeah, can you believe he's 7? She went, he's 9, you idiot.
I was just about to ask what's he having for his birthday, because the more astute of you will realise that we don't actually record this. It doesn't go out live. It actually gets recorded slightly beforehand, and I'm just a little bit worried he might have his ear pressed up against the door or something. So I'm not going to ask you that question.
It's okay. I'll tell you what he's having.
Can you? Nothing.
He's having a lump of coal, and he's going to have a sausage sandwich for breakfast.
And they wonder why Mullins is like he is, eh? Well, happy birthday, Albie. Are you doing some sort of party this afternoon or evening to celebrate it? What are you up to?
We're just going to stay in, I think. Have a nice
I know
quiet...
you're going to stay in, but are you going to do something? Yeah, because
no, we'll do some stuff. Yeah, we'll crack open the Zoom and get all of the various relatives who are in various states of craziness around the world and country and stuff like that on board, I'm sure.
How does he feel about having a birthday during lockdown? Is he all right about it?
Yeah, he loves lockdown.
Does he?
Honestly, he would be... He's a little bit like me. We go for a dog walk and he kind of peers out the door.
Does he?
Is there people out there?
Are there Martians?
Remember those things we used to see outside? Those things with 2 legs. Are they still around?
There are parts of lockdown, notwithstanding, of course, people's suffering, which I, wouldn't want that at all, of course. But there are parts of lockdown that have actually sort of relaxed me quite a lot. There are parts of it that have gone completely, and lots of it that have gone completely the other way. But the one bit I really don't like is that bit when you peer out the door, and then you sort of do what you've now called the COVID dance, where you sort of run across the road, just so you don't have to brush within 3 meters even of somebody.
I had a 3-way waltz this morning when I was walking the dog. we got to the crossroads up by Malmesbury Abbey, and there was an old lady on walking sticks.
Yeah.
There was a guy with 2 big heavy carrier bags of shopping, and myself and the dogs. We all kind of just looked at each other. I went to the left. It was, it was like I went to the left. The old lady just stood there staring. Yeah. The man with the bags went to the right. I went to the right. The man with the bags went to the left. The old lady just stood there staring. I moved forward a bit. The man went back. The old lady just stood there staring. She won the competition.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've won this, right? I fought 2 world wars not to have to cross the road for you, little whippersnappers.
How is it they say in the Rocky Horror Show? It's just a jump to the left. And then a step to the right.
Stop it.
Right, we've got one question, then we've got a guest. So we have a Saturday special guest, we have a Sunday special guest. Denise Bass, who I think was mentioned this time last week, from Rhode Island. She's snuck in with another question for a Saturday. Hi Neil, hi Kev. You can yada 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 this part, but I just wanted to know how much I enjoy the FujiCast and the two of you. The interviews and photography tips are educational and inspiring. I love being part of the FujiCast Facebook group community, and I would like to adopt your dog, please, called Monty. No, she didn't say that bit.
I was just about to put him in the post.
You were getting excited then, weren't you?
He's getting better. He's a cute little thing.
He's grown on you a bit, hasn't he?
Stinks though.
Anyway, my question is about making photo books. I took a 2-week trip to Cuba 2018 with a group of photographers. What's a trip, Kev? A trip? What's a trip?
Is that when you go out the back garden and fall over?
Yeah, it must be. With a group of photographers, and I want to make a photo book for myself. I've been making personal scrapbook-style photo books and wedding albums for ages, so I understand the methods involved. My problem with a Cuba book is how to organise the content. I want the book to be special, like a coffee table book style. I want one big picture per page and maybe a small caption. We visited 5 different cities during the 2 weeks, so I could organise the book chronologically, day by day, city by city, or I could organise it by subject, people, streets, colours, architecture, etc., and not worry if 2 facing pictures were shot in 2 different places. I can't decide. Love to hear your thoughts on how you approach building books. Now, Kev is the book designer supremo, having had a published book out himself.
Yeah, although I didn't do any of the designing. That was all done by the designers, the publishers. But I guess if you're doing it yourself, the single most important thing is the pictures. That's the important thing. And too many people create books, and these are books that you would buy in the shops, proper photo books, that don't allow the photos to breathe. And I say that a lot when I do my book reviews and stuff. If it's a book about photographs, the photograph needs to breathe.
So you mean by that not having sort of 9 or 12 on a page?
Yeah, not having too many on the page, and not overloading it with text as well. So, I mean, if it's a storybook and the pictures are supporting it, or it's an educational type book, or whatever, then you do need a lot of text. But if it's about the pictures, then I much prefer to see books with one image one side and a very short amount of text on the other side. I was looking at the Darcy Padilla book Family Love, which I reviewed recently, and that's what strikes me about that book. It's heavy and expensive book, and you look at it and you think, oh, that's a big book. It's got 500 pages. But actually, there's in most cases there's only one image per spread. So a spread is when the page is folded over, and on the other side is just a short quote or a very small piece of text, and that's all you need, I think, for if you need to include any text whatsoever. If it's telling the story of a trip, then try and keep it. If you're doing some introductory text to it in terms of this was my trip, this is what we did, this is how we got there, and here are the pictures, then probably chronological is the best way. But be brutal with your editing. It's better to have a small book with really top-notch images in it than a bigger book with relatively similar images, and you can't quite decide whether you want to get that one in. If it doesn't hit you straight away as a picture you want to show people publicly in a book, ditch it.
Do you know of any travel kind of books? I mean, I'm thinking of one. It's not really a travel book, but the way it's laid out is beautiful, and obviously he goes on his travels during this book. I'm thinking of Genesis by Salgado, which is beautifully laid out. That could be a good one to go get some inspiration from. Certainly, Denise.
Yeah, there's an author called Peter May who wrote novels. Who's written a lot of novels. He wrote the Black House trilogy and various other things. Very famous. You just type his name in and away you go. But he produced a book that was the photographs of all of the places that his novels are set in the Outer Hebrides. And now, if you bear with me, caller. I'm just going to grab it off the shelf.
Is there one at the back?
I got it. Right. So, the book is called Hebrides, and you will find it under Peter May as the author of the book, but it's actually photographs by David Wilson.
All right.
Now, if you read his books, you'll be mesmerized by this book, because his novels are all based in the place. He bases his novels in real places, although they're make believe. So you're looking at these pictures and thinking, yeah, I can just imagine Malachi doing what he did in a particular book, etc. But the photographs are by David Wilson, and it's really well laid out, and there's lots of kind of full page images, and mostly there's small amounts of text, but descriptions where these particular scenes were set in the books, etc. So that's a really good one to check out. Peter May, Hebrides. But otherwise, it really depends on the style of the book. If the book is more about the environment, for example, or the landscape pictures, then you want to keep them together. I would suggest try not to mix and match styles and genres in the book itself. So, if you've got lots of portraits of people in Cuba, then make the book about the portraits of the people in Cuba, rather than here's portraits of people in Cuba, and now here's a really beautiful picture of a Cadillac.
Which would make sense.
However, it depends on the audience, of course. If this is just for you, Denise, and your friends and family, then put in it what you want.
Yeah, and when you've done it, Denise, send us a signed copy, please.
Yes, absolutely.
It could be
address on the website.
1,300 quid in a few years' time. She said, P.S. Kev, I think you said you don't listen to podcasts, but I also know you like country music. There's an excellent podcast on the history of country music called Cocaine and Rhinestones. You might want to give it a try. There we go.
No, she's not the first person to point me at that.
Really?
I have to say.
Yeah,
somebody else did, and I can't remember.
Have you listened to it yet?
I listened to it, yes, I did.
Did you like it?
Yeah, very good. The problem with music podcasts, they're not allowed to play music.
No, I know. That's such an annoying thing about, Anyway, thank you very much, Denise. Hopefully that's your question answered. Right. Since it's a weekend on the show, we have a guest. I'd like to introduce you to a very special photographer called Donna Svennevik, based in New York. And as I found out with 4, not 3, there goes my attempt at detailed date research, decades of experience behind the lens, we have what I might describe as a gentle meander through her career, shooting everyone from presidents through to gangs in the city. But the one thing I really get through Donna's work, and in particular a recent exhibition, which you'll find on her website, with, of course, a link via the shiny new website we have, fujicast.co.uk, is just how important personal projects are. I think, or I hope to talk to Donna again, because I think we could spend a longer time talking about her work with ABC, the broadcaster, on foreign shores, and her time photographing some of the stars of American screen, and, of course, elaborate on some presidential stories. But rarely, very rarely, do you get to have a coffee talking about what celebrated photographers do when they have their camera at home, as it were. And that's what I try to do at any rate. Dear listener, let me introduce Donna Svennevik. First up, Donna, how are you?
I'm okay. I have stabilized in the quarantine. The first couple weeks were very strange for everyone, and I have a routine. Like I said, the first couple weeks, everybody slept late, ate junk food, and watched Netflix, and just freaked out and watched our president every day and freaked out, and were soothed by our great governor, Andrew Cuomo, who I'm interested in going out on a date with, by the way, just putting it out there. But we're going through a lot here. There's a lot of sadness and grief. And I am doing some photography around the city, too.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you've been able to get out there with a camera. I talked about this with Adam Gray, the photojournalist who's in New York, and he was saying it's a very difficult time to get out there and make pictures unless you've got some sort of reason to be out there doing it.
You know, that you hit the nail on the head. That's a really good point. I have worked as a photojournalist in New York and all around, and I've been credentialed. I've had access, and on a certain level, there's nothing I'd rather do than be in a hospital and be in the middle of it, making photographs. So it's really all about access, and I don't feel comfortable taking a picture of somebody being wheeled out from an ambulance. I did lift my camera up to shoot it, but then I put it down. And so what I've been shooting is the city, is these empty spaces and the spring. That's what I've been shooting.
Yeah, you made a piece about that, actually, to camera, a video piece, a journal piece. It really brought home to me. And you mentioned spring. And it really brought home to me the kind of eerie nature about this time of the city. There was small things, actually, like the fact that you felt that you could now ride safely around the city on a bike.
Exactly. I don't know. Are you a bike rider, Neil?
Well, we have them, but where we are, there's 5 cars on the street usually. I mean, it's a very different story when you're cycling around New York, I know.
Well, I've been a bike rider for many years, bicycle rider in New York City, and it's crazy. It's dangerous. It's crazy. I just got doored for the first time 6 months ago, and that it wasn't so bad, but it destroyed a bike. And you really have to pay attention. And sometimes it's just not worth it because it's too tense to ride. But now it's open and it's strangely safe. You can even, I rode up Fifth Avenue on the sidewalk the other day, up from 42nd to 59th on the sidewalk all the way. And if you appreciate Fifth Avenue, that is a stunning thing.
3 decades behind the camera then, Donna. I know your work continues.
4.
4 decades? No, surely not.
I know. I started when I was, about 9.
Yeah, that's it.
I look back at certain pictures, especially that show I had a couple years ago called Looking for Elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I was so young. And those were some of the first pictures I ever made. And I'm telling you that I don't know how that happened. I was completely visited by the gods with those photographs.
How did your parents feel about the movie? You've documented your parents. How did they feel about you being a photojournalist and what happened next with you traveling across the world to do it as well?
Well, they thought I should work for the telephone company in Brooklyn. That's what they were sure I should do. When I started, there weren't that many photographers, and there were certainly not a lot of women photographers. And it was in Brooklyn, Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. Nobody kind of was a photographer. It was a weird thing to do. And then I started working for the local papers. There was 2 weekly newspapers in our community. And I started working for them, and I had to do the cover every week, the front page every week. So I had to come up with some picture every week.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't a great picture, it would haunt me the whole week because I'd see it on the newsstands. But then my father and my mother and my parents, Bob and Doris, they were so proud of me when they saw my name, my byline, and they continued to be so proud of me.
Yeah. You photographed captains of industry, presidents, youth gangs, the variety, death row inmates. Do you ever consider what your life might have been minus that black box loaded with film?
I guess I haven't thought about it. It's been a very, very, very rich life.
Yeah.
It's been a very rich life. But some people where they think, you can have it all, you can do everything. I don't think you can do everything.
No.
I don't think so.
How do you go into a shoot that's got that much variable about it? For instance, how do you approach photographing a president one week and then somebody on death row the next? Take me through your work as a photographer, and when you go to these kind of assignments, how you're feeling, how you photograph, how you go into a room to approach these different people.
That's a good question, Neil. The first thing you want to do is be awake. You want to be mindful. You want to be ready. You don't want to be distracted. And I think even this morning, I got up very early and was walking around Manhattan. It's raining. I was just photographing again the spring. I was doing a lot of kneeling down and crouching and studying different blossoms and looking at it. And I realized it's very much like a meditation, because when I'm photographing, and I remember knowing this at a very young age, when I'm photographing, no pun intended, you really focus, and everything else goes away. The house could be burning down, but if you're going to photograph something, you're not noticing it. So there's a great paying attention, and it's also intimidating. When you're with the president, you feel like, oh my God, there's the president. Oh my God, you try to put that aside. And then on the other side with the gangs, it's also, oh gee, what are these guys like? Am I safe? And I never tried to be with the gang guys, and it's funny, I ended up being friends with them. But I didn't go in like that. I didn't go into the situation like that, because that would have been untrue. I went in as a photographer and I said, this is what I want to do. And what I'll do is every time I do photographs of you, the next time I'll come back with prints for you. And that's what I kept doing. I kept going back there over and over again, and I would bring them prints.
You became a very trusted member because I believe actually you became an alibi for some of the gang members when you were photographing them or recording them, I think, on a tape recorder, doing an interview when they could have been framed somewhere. Well, not necessarily, I don't mean framed, but they could have been placed somewhere else at the scene of a crime.
Yes, when I was with them, a murder was committed. They were accused of the murder. There was some television commercials and television shows that you could hear in the background of the tape recorder. And the first time, and I was an alibi witness twice. I had never done that. And the first trial was, I guess, a hung jury. And then they had to wait a couple of years in Rikers Island before the second trial. And the second trial, they got acquitted.
And that was on your alibi, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. New York Daily News. Now, you were there when it was the biggest selling newspaper in the state. And I've been talking about access with a few photographers of late, and the fact that the Americans, they get it. I don't mean just the people that are being photographed. I mean the public. I mean everybody gets it, and people embrace it. Whilst other places just don't. They may think they have press freedom, but they clearly don't. Do you think that's true in America, that people see the work of photojournalists under a very different spotlight?
Well, that's another real positive that I experienced years ago, because I was shooting also at a time before publicists and before a whole public relations machine. And I remember realizing very early in my career that wanting to be photographed is a flattery and is something that is extending some respect to a person. It's paying attention again. It's paying attention to someone. And also, I tried to be very careful with people. It was kind of wide open. I don't think it's the same anymore. I think people are different now.
Life magazine always fascinates me. And you've been credited with a picture of the year in that illustrious publication. That's quite a thing to hang on your wall, I think. But of course, it isn't a magazine now. And that was the place great careers started, wasn't it?
I remember as a kid, everybody got Life delivered, and we also got National Geographic. And you could not throw away either of them. So in my parents' house in Brooklyn, there was just hundreds and hundreds of Lifes, and Look was another magazine, and National Geographic. And it was just this, maybe it was, I'm not sure about this, but it might have been the first magazine that used pictures so gigantically, full page, full bleed, double truck pictures, just so big. And it was also, photography was new. Color photography was new. I think you would say gobsmacked, wouldn't you?
Well, I think it's an American phrase, but we'll go with that. You've travelled the world, particularly when you work for ABC. There's a lot of suitcases, Donna, and a lot of towns. Was it the travel that kept you fascinated through all that time? What was it that kept you on the road and away from home?
Yeah, it's novelty. I think some people like novelty. Like a lot of novelty. And I certainly did. And it's also an escape. I mean, I remember packing all the equipment for the trips. That in itself, the night before, you're again, I'm focused, I'm thinking, I'm trying to anticipate, what do I need? What do I not need? Because it's always so heavy. And very often I went alone. And met up with people. And it was just so exciting getting in that taxi at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. and getting to the airport and smelling the jet fuel. And you're off. You're free. Again, you're leaving everything behind and going forward.
What were the stories you particularly liked covering abroad? What was it about the different countries you went to. I mean, it's impossible to even start listing them. But what were the highlights?
Well, and it wasn't only abroad. I think in anticipation of speaking to you, I was just thinking, and also what's going on in New York. I was thinking that maybe my talent or also my love has to do with intimacy of photography and relational photography. It could be anywhere. It doesn't have to be abroad, but it was always when I would meet people and spend some time with them, and it could be some Maasai. I remember one morning we were in the middle of nowhere. It was me, a guy, and then a tracker, and the three of us we were near Olduvai Gorge. I think I'm saying it right. I think that's where man began. We were camping there. And we were making a fire, waiting for the tea to cook. And then all of a sudden, these two Maasai came around and were just, came to say hello. They had spears and beads and everything. And they we gave them some tea, and they hung around for a while. And I took photographs of them. But it's just those intimate connections. All over the world, and what I discovered they wanted some tea. I have a photograph of them holding the Nikon, and somehow I don't know why we were all laughing, and they were looking at the Nikon laughing, just like they could be on Broadway over here.
There's a lot of personal work, it seems, on your site, Donna. The feet series. This is what you're famous for. The feet series. Proper long tail project. I mean, some people talk about long tail being 5-10 years. You've been doing that project since 1978. Am I right in thinking that's the one that started on Brooklyn Bridge, or was that an image that was just part of this series?
That started actually on this bridge called the Verrazano Bridge.
Right.
And that connects Staten Island to Brooklyn. So I was photographing the New York City Marathon with my then boyfriend, Dan, who was working for Newsday or the AP. He taught me so much, and it was a great relationship. He's a great photographer, and he was generous, and so he was going to go on top of the Verrazano Bridge, and he said, "Okay, you come too." And so we went on top of the Verrazano Bridge, and that's before a lot of people did that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we were up there, and I guess I don't have fear of heights. And we were looking around, it's very high up. And then for some reason, I sat on the edge and I was wearing sneakers. It's a black and white photo. You can see it on my site.
Yeah.
And I just decided to hang my legs over the edge, and then I shot it. And that's the first time I did it.
But then it became the red slippers, didn't it?
Then I asked the Brooklyn Bridge. I asked for permission to go up there. You have to actually walk up the cable with safety belts on. And I went with two bridge workers, and one was in front of me and one was behind me. Mm-hmm. And they were saying, if you trip, you're not gonna die, but you're gonna get really scared. Right. So I did not tell them or anybody that my idea was to do the same thing. I had some red high-heeled sequin stilettos in my pack, and I didn't tell them I'm going to go up there and sit on the edge. I didn't think that they would like that. But then when I got up there, they were nice guys, and I took the shoes out of my pack, and I said, "This is what I want to do." And they said, "Okay." And then they helped me. Because it's at a slant.
Yeah.
On the edge there, it's not flat. So they helped me. They held me, and so I wouldn't fall off. And I did that shot.
Donna, you're not shy of showing everything, your feelings, your emotions. It all comes across in the pictures that you show online. Your relationships with people in particular. You've just talked about your relationships with people and how important they are. That one with your father, the day he passed, I was like, whoa, that blew me away. I mean, that became part of the Feet series as well, I know. But describe for me what you felt that day, because that was a palpable moment, that last day of Dad's life.
Yeah. So I got a call from my mother in the morning. She said, I can't get Dad up. I think he's dead. And my mother was starting to have dementia then. And so I just put a camera in the bag, and I took my dog, Sparky, because you see Sparky in that picture.
Yeah.
And I walked into the room, and I still wasn't sure, because my father was in a sleep position that that he was always in, that we know it very well, that position. But then when I walked over, he was dead, and he was cold. I sat down in a chair, and my mother was in and out. We were crying a lot, and it was very peaceful there. And then Sparky, my dog, got up and sat on the bed right there. He was very used to being photographed, Sparky.
Was he?
And I just did what I usually do. I photographed it. Yeah, photographed him and Sparky and my feet.
I've talked with photographers of late, 2 or 3 actually, and recently in a row, who have photographed their parents' battles with Parkinson's and dementia. And you mentioned Mum sadly has dementia. I'm sorry about that. Are you intending to photograph her plight?
Well, every time I have my real camera and I'm going to take a picture, she goes like this.
Right.
She was a knockout when she was young. I mean, I have scanned and retouched a lot of the old snapshots, and she used to wear red lipstick, and she had blonde hair, and she would wear tight suits and high heels, and she's ravaged by time in a way now, so she doesn't ever want me to take her picture, except she allowed me at her birthday recently. She put on some lipstick, and she actually posed for the real camera. So what I do is I sneak pictures on the iPhone when she's not looking, or she doesn't realize sometimes. I mean, maybe that's a terrible thing to do.
It's documentation.
I'm a photographer. Yeah. I'm doing it. So I do sneak pictures of her. Yeah.
Now, away from the photography, there's a bit of a left turn at the traffic lights, as I call it. You're an actor as well.
Yeah.
How did that all come about?
I started photography and acting almost at the same time. I remember I took 2 courses because I thought, I'm not working for the telephone company, so what the heck am I going to do? Yeah. And I took 2 courses. One was photography and one was acting, and I loved them both, but acting terrified me, and I'm not using that word lightly. I don't think I had the ego strength or something to act, because it was just wildly scary, I couldn't do it, but I was very attracted to it. And then concurrently, I started working as a photographer immediately for these small papers and for everybody in this small community. People just asked me to shoot things for them. So it just took off.
You had to choose between the 2 then, Donna?
I don't see any reason that I do. Sometimes I do more of one and less than another. Yeah. But boy, they kind of really work nice together. They really do. It's using different parts of your brain, your being, or something.
Yeah. Well, look, you're still a photographer. What's next photographically? I know photographers always have plans. You've got long-tail projects, I'm sure, and you've got things that you want to do, achieve, see, be, places to be. Where would you like to go? What would you like to do?
I don't know. One thing I'm working on is a theatrical piece using writing and photography. That's what I'm trying to do. And when I ever do it, I will certainly let you know. But that's one thing. And then I don't know. I'm trying to be open because now, in a way, I love doing a portrait of a person more than ever. It's such a wonderful thing to do. It's getting to know someone. It's such a pleasurable thing to do.
An absolute pleasure to talk with Donna Svennevik, the New York-based photographer. And as I said right at the start, the links for the things that she talks about, such as the gangs and the Feet series, and even Sparky, you'll find them on fujicast.co.uk. And in the future, yes, I'm really hoping to invite Donna back to talk more about the photographs that she took of presidents and of course the time that she spent with ABC, the broadcaster. That is it for Saturday. Wish Albie all the best. Happy birthday to you and all the rest of it.
Yeah, he's growing up, isn't he?
Yeah. Now he's 9 years old, so he's not yet allowed his first free glass of sherry. It's going to be a few years yet.
I'll have it for him.
Yeah. I'm sure you will. Wish him well. Have a nice Saturday. Have a nice Albees birthday day.
Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Goodbye, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. We're back tomorrow with another show. Well, unless we're fired, we'll talk to you then. Goodbye, sweetheart. Goodbye. Goodbye.